My heart twisted as my son David stammered through the phone call, canceling my Mother's Day dinner invitation. Just family, he'd said, meaning Christine's parents, not me. Later, I stood hidden outside their house, clutching a gift, only to hear Christine's cruel laughter. The real gift will be when that witch ends up in a nursing home. The delicate teacup I'd bought for her slipped from my fingers, shattering on the concrete, a sharp crack mirroring the pain in my chest. That night, I tore up the mortgage check I'd been sending them for months, a quiet act of defiance that would surely echo through their seemingly perfect lives. You here follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has. I stood quietly in my kitchen, gently arranging the pale pink roses into the crystal vase I'd kept wrapped away for special occasions. Today was one, Mother's Day. The flowers were meant for Christine, my daughter-in-law. Sunlight poured through the windows and lit the surface of the hand-painted teacup I'd spent far too much on, especially with my fixed income. Still, I wanted her to feel seen, cared for, loved. I was 60 years old and still believed, maybe foolishly, that the right gesture, the right gift, the right words could bridge the quiet chasm between us. Then the phone buzzed. David. My son's name on the screen stirred a small bloom of hope in my chest. I wiped my hands on my apron and picked up. Mom, his voice was strained. A familiar sinking feeling pulled at my stomach. Yes, honey, about tomorrow. I've already got Christine's gift, and I made those lemon cookies the kids love. Silence. A long one, Bon. That's the thing, Mom. Christine thought it would be better to keep it small this year. Just family. My hand paused in the air. But I am family. He hesitated. You know what I mean. Just us and the kids. Christine's parents are coming too. Her parents. I blinked, trying to steady my voice. I see. Well, I could just drop by. I won't stay long, just want to give Christine her. Mom, please, don't make this harder. His voice, sharp with frustration, sliced clean through me. Christine's been under a lot of stress lately, with the renovations and everything. The renovations on the house I'd helped them buy, the one whose mortgage I'd been paying out of my retirement fund since David lost his job last year. I had been draining my future to keep theirs afloat. I understand, I lied. I didn't. After we hung up, I stood there, staring at the roses I'd arranged with such care. I'd spent my whole life believing family meant sticking together. Through everything. It's what got me through the endless nights after Robert died, leaving me alone to raise a 12-year-old boy with nothing but grief and grit. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys. I wouldn't go in, just a quick stop by their place. I'd leave the gifts on the porch and drive away. What harm could that possibly do? 20 minutes later, I pulled up in front of their 2-story colonial. Quiet, no signs of life. Maybe they were out running errands for the next day. I stepped out of the car, gift bag in hand, and approached the porch. That's when I heard her voice, Christine's voice, drifting through an open window. No, Mom, don't worry about her showing up. I made sure David told her to stay away. I froze in place. My fingers gripped the bag tighter against my chest. She's not invited this year. Christine laughed, a cold, dismissive laugh that made my skin prickle. Or any year, if I have my way. I should have walked away, left the gifts, and turned around. But I stood there, unable to move. You know what would be a real Mother's Day gift? Her voice was thick with contempt. When that old witch finally ends up in a nursing home, that'll be a day worth celebrating. The bag slipped from my hands. The delicate teacup shattered on the concrete. The sound barely registered. Neither did the sharp sting of a ceramic shard slicing into my finger when I instinctively knelt to pick up the pieces. That old witch. I drove home in a fog, tears blurring the road. When I stepped into my living room, I collapsed onto the couch. Her words circled in my chest like a vice. For years, I'd made excuses. She was young. She was stressed. Maybe she just needed more time. I'd swallowed her snide remarks. I'd smiled through family photos she'd excluded me from. I'd pretended not to notice because I wanted peace. For David. For the kids. And all the while, I'd been the one helping them survive. My eyes landed on my checkbook. resting where I'd left it on the coffee table. The next mortgage payment was due in a few days. I'd already written the check. 2,100, nearly half my monthly income. With shaking hands, I picked it up and tore it in two. Then I called the bank. "I'd like to place a stop payment," I said, voice trembling. "Are you sure, Mrs. Harrison?" the rep asked gently. "This is a recurring payment. You've been making it for over a year." "I'm sure," I replied, and for the first time in years, I meant it. "That payment ends today." When I hung up, I noticed something. My hands had stopped shaking. I could breathe again. Tomorrow would be Mother's Day. I would spend it alone, but it would also mark the beginning of something new. A life where I no longer traded my dignity for scraps of affection. A life where I no longer let anyone treat me as a burden. I looked around my modest living room, my gaze settling on the photos of David and the grandchildren. What would happen now? Would Christine allow me to see them when she realized the money was gone? The thought pierced me, but then another voice, a steadier, braver one, rose inside me. What kind of example would I be setting for my grandchildren if I allowed this to continue? If I showed them that love meant silent suffering? The phone rang. David. Too soon for him to know about the canceled check. Maybe Christine had seen me outside the house. I stared at the screen as it buzzed. I let it ring. 3 days passed, no word from David, no call, no message. 3 long days of jumping whenever the phone lit up. Rehearsing in my head what I'd say if they did call, wondering if I'd made the right choice. I sat at my kitchen table, flipping through old photo albums. David at 7, grinning wide, a gap where his front teeth used to be, holding up a fish he'd caught with his father. I traced my finger over Robert's face in the picture. He died of a heart attack just 3 years after that photo was taken. I was 30, a widow, a mother, alone, grieving. I did everything I could, I whispered to the picture. I kept our boys safe. And I had. I worked 2 jobs, secretary by day, waitress by night. I helped with homework in the hours between shifts. I never missed a school play, even when I could barely keep my eyes open. A record, a log of every payment I've made for you and Christine over the past 12 years. Mortgage payments, car repairs, school fees, groceries. I even covered your credit card debt, twice. You never asked how I was managing. You just assumed I'd always be there to catch you. David stared at the notebook in silence, his lips slightly parted. I could tell he hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected receipts. I did it willingly, I said softer now. Not once did I complain, because I believed I was helping my son build the life his father and I once dreamed of. But somewhere along the way, that dream stopped being ours. It became Christine's vision. And in that vision, I was just a wallet. He looked away, jaw clenched. Christine didn't mean what she said. She was angry, tired, venting, I finished for him. I know, but there's a pattern, David, a pattern of minimizing me, of excluding me. She didn't want me at your wedding planning. She made sure I wasn't invited to your daughter's ballet recital. And Mother's Day, my own son didn't call, while her parents were celebrated at your table. How do you think that felt? David's eyes flicked back to Maya finally. Guilt flickered across his face, faint but real. I've never asked for much, I went on. Just to be part of your lives, to be seen, to be treated with the same kindness I've always given you. He leaned back, his body sagging as if the weight of everything was finally pressing down. I didn't realize, he murmured. I know, I said, and maybe that's the hardest part. You didn't realize because I made it too easy not to. He nodded slowly, his face pale. But the kids, they'll have to move schools. Christine is going to be furious, and I don't know how we'll manage. I didn't respond right away. I looked down at my hands, at the fine lines etched by time and toil. These hands had done everything, from changing his diapers to wiring funds for his emergencies. And now, finally, they were resting. I understand it's hard, I said gently, but it's not my burden to carry anymore. I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because I finally see that if I don't protect what little I have left, there'll be nothing left of me. He exhaled sharply. So that's it? That's it, I said, my voice calm but resolute. You're a grown man, David. You'll find a way. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then he stood, shoulders stooped. I'll tell Christine. I nodded. Tell her I wish her well. He didn't hug me, didn't look back. The door closed with a quiet click behind him. I stayed seated for a while, staring at the quiet room. No rage, no guilt, just stillness, and a strange sense of peace. Later, I returned to my garden. The sun had climbed higher, lighting up the petals of tulips and daffodils, dancing in the breeze. I knelt again in the soil, pulling weeds gently, my hands steady. This time I wasn't doing it to escape. I was planting something for myself, something new. Every financial gift I had ever given him, laid out in black and white. Since the day he got married, the down payment for the house, the renovation costs, every mortgage payment I helped cover, and the loans that had never seen a penny returned. I flipped through the papers, my fingers shaking. The total was over $300,000, practically everything I'd saved my entire life for retirement. I looked at David. His face turned red. You never said those were loans, he said, defensive. You offered to help. And you never said no, I replied evenly. You never even said thank you. And all the while, Christine made it abundantly clear just how little she wanted me around. That's not true, David protested quickly, but he couldn't look me in the eye. I didn't flinch. Last Christmas, she forgot to tell me dinner had been moved up 2 hours. I got there just in time to watch everyone finishing dessert. David shifted in his seat. That was a misunderstanding. In the family vacation to the beach last summer, I only found out after the fact from Facebook. You'd already left. We thought you wouldn't want to go. Your anniversary party? I was seated at a table of complete strangers, on the other side of the room, far from any family. Mom, you're being dramatic. Am I? I got up and walked to my desk, pulling out a bundle of envelopes, all still sealed. I laid them in front of him. Birthday cards for the children, Christmas checks, all of them returned, marked with wrong address. My address hasn't changed in 20 years. David paled. I never saw those. Of course you didn't, I said. Christine made sure of that. Just like she makes sure I rarely get to see my grandchildren. I swallowed the lump in my throat before continuing. Did you know the last time I saw Lucy, she asked why I didn't love her anymore? Because Christine told her that's why I never visit. His shoulders slumped. She wouldn't. Our neighbor did. She overheard Lucy telling her daughter. I leaned forward. David, I've tried for years. I've tried to build a relationship with Christine. I've let things go, forgiven insult after insult. I kept giving, even when I shouldn't have. But I can't do it anymore. I won't. The doorbell rang. We both jumped. You expecting someone? He asked. I wasn't, but my gut twisted. I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly who it was. When I opened the door, Christine stood on the porch, her face already hardened with self-righteous irritation. She didn't wait to be invited in, just swept past me. I knew he wouldn't handle this right, she snapped, marching into the living room. Her gaze locked on David. What's taking so long? Just get her to sign the check so we can leave. The air turned to ice. David looked mortified. Christine, that's not... Oh, stop! She turned to me, arms folded across her chest. Look, I get that you're upset about Mother's Day, but this is ridiculous. We need that money. It's my money, I said calmly but firmly, and I've decided not to give it to you anymore. Her face darkened. After everything we've done for you? I laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all hit me so hard, laughter was the only response. What exactly have you done for me, Christine? Besides take my money and keep me away from my family? I've tolerated you, she spat, all pretense cracking. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is having you around? Always hovering, always needing attention? David was fine before you started playing the poor lonely widow card, she added. David suddenly stood, his chair scraping loudly across the floor. Christine, that's enough. No, it's not, she said, her voice rising. Your mother has been guilt-tripping you for years, using her checkbook to manipulate you. She spun toward me again. Well, guess what? We don't need her. David's voice was barely audible. We kind of do need her checkbook right now. Something inside me snapped. My own son, my child, saying the quiet part out loud. My worth to them was measured in dollars and cents. Christine pivoted, her tone turning sugary. Priscilla, we all say things we don't mean when we're upset. Let's move past this. I cut her off. The mortgage is no longer my concern, I said. Neither are you. Her composure evaporated. You smug, self-righteous old woman, she hissed. Do you really think David would come visit if you weren't paying our bills? Do you think the kids care about their grandmother? Or do they just like the expensive gifts? David looked like someone had slapped him. Christine. No, let her finish, I said, feeling strangely calm. Let her say what's really on her mind. Christine let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Fine, the truth? The truth is you've been buying your way into our lives because you've got nothing else to offer, no one else who wants you, and now you're throwing a fit because you realized we've been using you. The silence that followed was deep and final. David looked broken. Christine was shaking with rage. And I felt light. Thank you for your honesty, I said, voice steady. Now I'd like you both to leave. Mom, David tried, but I raised my hand. I've heard enough. We're done here. Christine grabbed her purse. Fine, let's go, David. She's made her choice. He hesitated, caught between us. David, she snapped, her voice sharp as a whip. He looked at me, then followed her toward the door. But before he stepped out, he turned back. I didn't know, Mom, about the cards, about what she told Lucy. I swear. I gave a single nod. Whether I believed him or not no longer mattered. When the door shut behind them, I sank into the couch. My hands trembled, not from sadness, but from a fierce, unexpected pride. I had finally taken a stand. I had drawn the line. The masks had fallen. Now I could see things clearly. The weeks after that confrontation passed in a strange fog. I went about my days on autopilot, shopping for groceries, pulling weeds in the garden, watching television I barely registered. The silence of the house was matched only by the silence of my phone. No calls from David, no photos of the kids, no requests for money. It hurt, but not as much as I'd expected. There was a strange freedom in it, too. One Wednesday afternoon, I was folding laundry when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there was Lucy, my 11-year-old granddaughter, standing on the porch. Her bike was carelessly tossed on the lawn behind her. Lucy? I gasped, rushing to her and pulling her into my arms. What are you doing here? Does your dad know where you are? She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. Mom and Ash fight all the time now, about the house, about you. I heard Dad say the bank's going to take our house away. My heart dropped. So it had begun. I miss you, Grandma, she whispered, burying her face in my shoulder. Mom said you don't want to see us anymore, but I knew that wasn't true. I led her into the kitchen and pulled out the hot chocolate mix, her favorite, extra marshmallows, even though the afternoon was warm. Some moments called for comfort. I set the warm mug down gently in front of her. Mother wasn't being truthful, I said softly. I've missed you so much. Oh. Lucy gave a small nod and sipped her cocoa with both hands, her legs swinging slightly above the floor. Dad's really sad all the time, she said quietly. He lost his job again last week. Mom keeps crying about the house. So that explained why David hadn't called. On top of everything with the mortgage, he'd been laid off, again. The third time in 5 years. The tech world chewed people up and spat them out without blinking. Are you and Dad fighting? Lucy asked suddenly, her wide eyes searching my face. Is that why you're not helping with our house anymore? I took a deep breath, trying to shape my thoughts in a way that a child could understand. Your dad and I have had some disagreements about respect, about how people in a family should treat each other. Is it because Mom's mean to you? She asked, her voice direct in the way only children can be. I heard her tell Aunt Sarah you were a controlling witch who needed to mind your own business. I almost choked on my tea. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. It's complicated, sweetheart, I said after a moment, recovering. But I want you to know something very important. None of this is your fault. And I love you more than you can imagine. Later, I called David to let him know Lucy was safe and with me. The relief in his voice was immediate and unmistakable. I'll come get her right away, he said quickly, the strain leaking through his words. Let her stay for dinner, I offered. I'll bring her home after. There was a pause. Christine won't like that. She doesn't have to know, I replied, surprised by the firmness in my own voice. Lucy came to meet David. She's scared. She's worried about you both, about all the yelling. The silence on the other end stretched longer this time. Then finally, fine, but I'll come pick her up. I need to talk to you anyway. David arrived just after 7, the fatigue in his face deeper than I'd ever seen. Lucy ran to greet him, bubbling over with excitement about the cookies we'd baked and how I'd let her help deadhead the roses. Go wait in the car, sweetheart, David said gently, placing a hand on her back. Grandma and I need to talk. When the door closed behind her, he stood in my living room with his hands in his pockets, the way he had weeks earlier. But something was different this time. The fire had burned out. The anger was gone, replaced by a tiredness that seemed etched into his bones. You lost your job, I said quietly. He nodded. Budget cuts. They let go of 20% of the staff. In the house? We've already missed 2 payments. He sat heavily in the chair, rubbing a hand across his face. We got a formal notice. If we don't pay up within 30 days, they'll start foreclosure. I said nothing. I just waited. Christine's parents can't help, he added. Her dad lost most of his retirement in some bad investment in last year. They're just barely scraping by. That was news to me. Christine always spoke of her family as if they were comfortably well off. We're going to have to sell, David admitted, his voice low. But the market's awful. We'll lose a lot. Maybe walk away with nothing once the bank takes its cut. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I wasn't sorry enough to reach for my checkbook, but I felt genuine compassion for what he was enduring. He gave a weary nod, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled envelope. I found these in Christine's desk drawer. I was looking for the mortgage papers. He handed me the envelope, and I opened it to find a small collection of birthday and holiday cards. All of them from me. None had been opened. There were more, David said softly. She kept them all, said she was protecting the kids from their manipulative grandmother. My hands trembled as I pulled out each card, colorful, cheerful, filled with love and little surprises that had never reached my grandchildren. I didn't know, David whispered. I swear I didn't know she was doing that. What about everything else? I asked, my voice low. The way she speaks to me, the subtle ways I've been left out, forgotten birthdays, missed invitations. He looked away. I knew about some of it, he admitted. I told myself she was just being territorial, that she'd soften over time, that things would get better. I didn't want to face what was really happening. It was easier to pretend everything was fine. He met my gaze again, his own full of regret. And now everything's coming apart. Christine blames me. She says I didn't handle you properly, that if I'd been a better son, you wouldn't have cut us off and we wouldn't be in this mess. The irony hit me like a punch. After years of sacrificing, of always putting David first, of quietly enduring, I was now the villain, simply because I'd finally said enough. What do you want from me, David? I asked, my voice steady. I don't know, he said, getting to his feet and pacing. I'm not asking you to bail us out again. I know I don't have the right to ask that. No, I agreed, you don't. But I don't want to lose you, he said, his voice breaking. The kids need their grandmother, and I need my mom. That word need hit differently. All my life, I had been needed. For money, for childcare, for emotional support. Always giving, rarely receiving. But this felt different. I spoke to a lawyer last week, I said, changing the subject. David looked up sharply. A lawyer? Why? Because I put more than $150,000 into that house, I replied calmly. I paid the down payment. I covered mortgage payments for over 18 months. That gives me a legal interest in the property. David paled. Are you suing us? No, I just wanted to understand my rights. The lawyer told me I could file a claim on the proceeds of the sale, or I could claim partial ownership. Partial ownership, he repeated, bewildered. I could contribute again to stop the foreclosure, I explained, but only in exchange for shared ownership, co-ownership, real and legal. A flicker of hope crossed his face. You'd do that? I'm considering it, I said carefully, but there would be conditions. What conditions? First, I'd need regular, uninterrupted time with my grandchildren. He nodded quickly. Of course. Second, I would be treated with respect. No more being left out of birthdays or holidays. No more hiding cards or gifts. His nod was slower this time, more thoughtful. And third, I continued, locking eyes with him, Christine would need to apologize. Not a fake, forced apology, a real one. A sincere acknowledgement of how she's treated me. David's shoulders slumped. She'll never do that. Then I guess we're at an impasse, I said, rising to walk him to the door, because I'm done compromising my dignity. Not even for you, David. He left with Lucy, his posture heavy with defeat. That night I sat in my garden as twilight fell, the soft glow of fireflies weaving between the rose bushes. I thought about the house, about my grandchildren, about the tangled, painful love I still felt for my son. I hadn't said no, but I hadn't said yes either. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first, and it felt frightening, but right. My phone buzzed. A message from David. Can we talk again tomorrow? Just the two of us. I typed back a single word. Yes, whatever came next, I would face it on my terms, because dignity has a cost, and I was finally ready to pay it. David showed up the next morning, and he came alone. The first thing I noticed, almost instinctively, was the absence of his wedding ring. The sight of his bare hands struck me more than I expected. Still, I tried to keep things steady, to hold on to some version of normal, whatever normal even meant anymore. Coffee? I offered, walking toward the kitchen without waiting for a response. He nodded silently and followed. We sat at my modest kitchen table, facing each other, and the silence between us grew heavier with every second that passed. At last, he broke it. Christine and I had a huge fight last night, he said, eyes fixed on the steaming mug in his hands. It was about the card, the one she hid from the kids, about how she's been treating you. I cradled my coffee with both hands, letting its warmth seep into my palms, grounding me. I'm sorry it came to that, David. I told her what you said, about helping with the house if there was respect. An apology, he said, lifting his eyes to meet mine. They were rimmed with red, exhaustion etched deep into his face. She said she'd rather live in a cardboard box than apologize to you. That one sentence cut through me, sharper than I wanted to admit. I felt it like a bruise blooming beneath the skin, slow and aching. Still, I swallowed my reaction. I see, I murmured. I don't think she meant it, David added quickly, grasping at something redeemable. She's just proud and scared. She's never really had to think about money before. That's not quite true, though, is it? I said gently, not accusatory, just trying to connect the dots. You mentioned her parents are struggling too. David blinked. How did you know that? You said yesterday her father lost his retirement savings. A confused look passed across his face, his brow furrowing. I didn't know about that until last week, he said slowly. Christine's always said her parents were doing great, that they were self-made, not like you. He hesitated. I leaned forward slightly. Not like me, I repeated. What do you mean? He exhaled, looking ashamed. She said you coasted on Dad's life insurance, that you've always played the victim. I almost laughed, not from humor, but from the absurdity of it. Robert's life insurance barely covered his funeral expenses. Everything we'd had after that, I earned. Through years of long hours, sacrifice, and grit. David, your father's life insurance was $25,000. That got us through the funeral and kept us afloat for maybe 3 months. After that, I worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on, to put food on the table. He looked down. I know, he said quietly. I remember. Then why would you believe her, Bayou? I asked, my voice soft but firm. He had no answer, just silence. Trying to change the current of the conversation, I asked, where are you staying? At a motel, near where work used to be. He let out a short, empty laugh. Told Christine I needed space. To think. And the kids? They're with her. I'll see them this weekend. He paused, looking unsure. I was hoping you might come with me. They miss you. The thought of seeing my grandchildren again made my heart ache in the best way, but caution pressed against my ribs. What about Christine? She'll be at yoga. That's the one thing she won't give up. no matter what's going on with our finances. So we're sneaking around behind her back? The idea made my stomach twist. That's not a solution, David. I know, he said, rubbing a hand through his hair, a gesture so much like Robert's that it pulled at something deep inside me. But I don't know what else to do. She won't bend, and you won't bend, and the kids, they're stuck in the middle. I sighed, hearing the truth in his words. He wasn't wrong, and the children didn't deserve to carry the weight of grown-up failures. All right, I agreed, though reluctantly, but only this once. After that, we need a real plan. His shoulders sagged, like a burden had been lifted, if only temporarily. Thank you. He hesitated again. Mom, about the house. What did the lawyer say exactly? I chose my words carefully. That I have options. Given how much I've invested, I could make a legal claim. Would you? His voice was small now, almost childlike. I'd understand if you wanted to, but it would. I haven't decided yet. I cut in gently. But if I do help, it won't be a gift. I'd be a co-owner. My name would have to be on the deed. He nodded slowly. That makes sense. He stood, ready to leave, but paused at the door. I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it, for not seeing what was going on, for taking your help for granted. I know, I said softly. I've never doubted you love me, David, but love without respect, it's not enough. After he left, I found myself wandering into the spare bedroom. Over the years, it had become a catch-all. Boxes stacked high, old photo albums, Robert's books, mementos from a life already lived. It was time to go through them, to decide what to keep and what to let go. In one of the boxes, I uncovered a worn sketchbook. The cover was frayed at the corners, the pages inside yellowed with time. Art had once been my passion, before I was a wife, before I became someone's mother, before life demanded more practical things of me. I used to be good. Good enough that my high school art teacher had urged me to apply to art school, but I didn't. I chose business administration, met Robert, got married at 22. The sensible path, the expected one. As I flipped through page after page, I saw the version of myself I'd left behind. Portraits, landscapes, still lifes all drawn with a careful and practiced hand. The skill was real. Why had I ever stopped? On a whim, I drove downtown to the art supply store. The woman behind the counter was about my age, with silver hair twisted into a clip and paint smudges on her fingertips. She helped me pick out pencils, charcoal, watercolors. Getting back into it? She asked with a smile as she rang me up. After 40 years, I said, I don't even know if I still can. It's like riding a bike, she said, handing over the bag. Your hands will remember, they just need waking up. That evening, I cleared a spot by the window, set up a small easel, and began to sketch the view of my overgrown garden. My strokes were slow, uncertain, rusty. But as the sky shifted from gold to rose to violet, something inside me stirred. Something woke up. The next day, I visited the community center. They had art classes 3 times a week. I signed up without a second thought, ignoring the flutter of nerves in my chest. When was the last time I'd done something just for myself? By week's end, I had already attended my first class, Watercolor Basics. The instructor, Ellis, was a kind-eyed man with a quiet voice and boundless patience. He studied my work and said, "You've done this before." I nodded, unsure how to explain the swirl of emotion that simple recognition brought up in me. After class, a woman named Martha, a fellow widow, invited me to join her and a few friends for coffee. I surprised myself by saying yes. The cafe was cozy, filled with the rich smell of coffee and the soft hum of conversation. Martha's friends, Judith, Eleanor, and Doris, welcomed me like I'd always been part of their circle. They talked about books, politics, and an upcoming art exhibit at the local gallery. You should submit something, Judith said after I mentioned I'd started drawing again. Oh, I couldn't, I laughed nervously. I'm just starting over. We're all beginners again at something, Eleanor said with a knowing smile. That's the beauty of it. Reinvention, that word lingered, wrapping itself around my thoughts like morning mist. I carried it with me as I drove home, simmering in my mind while I brushed my teeth and folded into bed. It stayed with me, threading through my thoughts as I stared at the ceiling in the darkness, thinking about the upcoming weekend, about the excitement of seeing my grandchildren again, about the house, my house now, and Christine, and the knots of family ties that refused to come undone, no matter how frayed. Even as I was waking up to this new version of myself, someone I hadn't fully met until now, maybe someone I'd never dared to become before, I understood that I wasn't just the roles I'd been assigned or accepted. I wasn't only a mother, a grandmother, or a financial safety net. I was beginning to shift into something beyond those labels. I was discovering who I truly was. I was becoming myself. A year passed, an entire year of change I never could have predicted, especially not after that devastating Mother's Day, when Christine's words had struck like lightning, burning down the illusions I had built around my place in my son's world. And now it's Mother's Day again. Sunlight streams across the worn tile of my kitchen floor, golden and warm. I'm arranging a bouquet of tulips fresh from my garden, bright reds, creamy whites, soft purples. The air is thick with the scent of cinnamon and sugar. The rolls in the oven are rising beautifully, the same recipe I had perfected over those long, quiet winter months. When the doorbell rings, my heart lifts. I already know who it is. Grandma! Lucy and James fly through the doorway, arms flung wide, laughter spilling out of them. I bend to catch them both in a hug, drinking in their presence like water in the desert. Behind them stands David, holding a wrapped gift, his expression a little sheepish but warm. "Happy Mother's Day," he says, leaning in to kiss my cheek. "Something smells amazing," he adds, sniffing the air like a little boy. "Cinnamon rolls," I say, smiling as I take the package. "Your favorite." Lucy tugs at my hand urgently. "Grandma, wait till you see the painting I made at school." "Dad brought it for you." "I can't wait," I say, and I mean it. She's 12 now, and it's clear. Art is her thing. She has the spark. I've done what I can to nurture it. Sketchbooks, watercolor sets, online classes when she's here. And now she's blossoming. We move into the living room, which feels brighter these days, not just from the sunlight, but from the changes I've made. My own watercolor landscapes now hang on the walls, soft blues and greens replacing the lifeless beige prints that once lived there. As I sit and look around, I can't help marveling at how much is different now. David and Christine's Grand Colonial, the one I had helped support, was eventually foreclosed. My lawyer had assured me I had a legal claim, but I didn't pursue it. I couldn't. Some battles, even the ones you'd win, aren't worth the damage they leave behind. Some victories cost too much. 2 months after that confrontation, David and Christine separated. Financial pressure and exposed deceptions eroded what little was left between them. Christine moved across the country to live with her sister in California. She took the kids with her. David, for his part, found a small apartment near his new job, less flashy, less money, but steady and stable at a smaller tech company. The whole situation was hard on everyone. The children would call me sometimes, their voices small and confused, sadness hanging between every word. Oddly enough, Christine hadn't poisoned them against me. That surprised all of us. Maybe it was humility born from losing nearly everything. Or maybe she was just too exhausted to keep fighting. David made monthly visits, and over time, they began to settle into a shared parenting rhythm. 6 months ago, she told David she'd met someone new. She wanted to stay in California long-term, but was open to the idea of the children spending holidays and summers with their dad. David was gutted by the finality of it all and by the realization that he'd only see his kids part-time. But something else emerged too. Strength. One night he called me. "Mom," he said, his voice clearer, firmer than it had been in a long time. "I'm going to ask for full custody." "Are you sure?" I asked gently, worried what it would mean for him and for the kids. "I'm sure," he said without hesitation. "Christine's not a bad mom, but her life is headed somewhere else now. The kids miss home, their friends, their schools. They miss you." That last part broke something open in me. I had to step into the kitchen and hold on to the counter to steady myself. And then, another surprise. Christine didn't fight him. She agreed. Maybe she was relieved. Her new relationship was moving fast, and her partner had kids of his own. A family already made, no custody battles required. 3 months ago, Lucy and James came back home for good. David rented a modest place just a few streets away from mine. And suddenly I was back in their lives again. Not as a wallet, not as a convenience, but as a real grandmother. I picked them up from school some days. I helped Lucy paint. I helped James make baking soda volcanoes and wire circuits for his science class. Open your gift, Mom, David says now, gently pulling me back from the tide of memory. I peel back the paper to find a photograph, beautifully framed. One of me and the children at the art show, the one where one of my own watercolors had won an honorable mention. We're all smiling, arms linked, cheeks flushed, caught in a moment of joy. It feels like a memory sealed in amber. It's perfect, I whisper, voice catching. David helps me hang it above the fireplace, right where it belongs. The children dart outside to play in the garden, their laughter tumbling through the open windows while we finish preparing lunch. I got the promotion, David says almost offhandedly as he slices strawberries. My head whips around. David, that's amazing. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He shrugs, but I see it. The pride in his shoulders, the quiet satisfaction. Wanted to save something good for today. I'm so proud of you, I say, my voice thick with emotion. I couldn't have done it without you, he murmurs. Not just the babysitting or the cooking. You showed me what strength looks like, what it means to value yourself. I reach over and squeeze his arm, speechless. I've been thinking about the future, he continues, about buying a house again someday, when I've saved up properly. That's a good goal, I say carefully. We've both learned to tread lightly when it comes to finances. This time I'm doing it right, he says, catching my eye. No big risks, no help from you. I need to do it myself, not just for me, but for the kids. I want them to see that you don't have to overspend to build a good life. It's taken him 40 years to learn that, but he's learned it, and for that, I'm grateful. Lucy and James burst back in, their hands full of dandelions. For the table, Lucy says seriously, arranging them in a little vase with all the gravity of a trained florist. We sit down together for lunch, quiche, salad, and my warm homemade rolls. Before we begin, David raises his glass of sparkling cider. To Mom, he says, meeting my eyes, for showing us what really matters. The kids chime in, their voices eager and clear, and I raise my glass too, swallowing the emotion that's rising again. After lunch, while the children help their father wash dishes, something new, something good, I step out onto the porch alone. The spring air smells like earth and growth. My garden is a riot of color, bursting with life. At 3, Martha will pick me up. We meet every week now, our little art group, a circle of women drawn together not just by paint and canvas, but by the invisible threads of change and resilience. There's Martha adjusting to the unfamiliar rhythms of retirement, Judith weathering the long, quiet storm of her husband's illness, and me navigating the shifting shape of what family means. In that circle, I found something I hadn't realized I was missing. Companionship without expectation, support without judgment. With each shared story and stroke of the brush, a sense of belonging bloomed quietly inside me. Somehow my watercolor work has evolved. It's subtle, not dramatic, but the lines are surer, the colors more daring. So much so that a small local gallery reached out, offering to include a few pieces in their summer show. It's not a big thing, not in the world's eyes, but to me, it's enormous. A quiet triumph that fills my chest with something warm and firm. Pride. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that steadies you. Inside the house, I hear the children laughing. Pure, unfiltered joy. David's voice follows, loud and completely off-key as he belts out some pop tune that's playing on the radio. The sound of ordinary life. A new kind of family has grown around me. Not perfect, but real. A home built not from obligation, but from respect. Small daily acts of care, shared laughter, and chosen effort. Just last week, an envelope arrived. Christine's handwriting. Inside, a card. An apology that had taken years to arrive, but finally did. She acknowledged the pain she had caused, without excuses. Reading it, I felt something shift. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone to name what had been left unspoken. And though I felt no pull to reconnect, No desire to invite her back into the soft center of my life. The gesture landed with more weight than I'd expected. Some bridges crumble for a reason. Some ashes are better left untouched. The front door creaks open, and David steps onto the porch beside me, holding a fresh cup of tea. He presses it into my hands with an easy smile. Happy? He asks. I look at him. This son of mine, who had once stood so close to the edge of himself, nearly disappeared beneath the weight of things he didn't know how to say. And yet, here he is now, slowly, determinedly relearning what it means to love and be loved in return. With space, with clarity, with boundaries that don't cage but protect. I meet his eyes and nod. Yes, I say, with complete honesty, I am. We sit in a silence that doesn't ask to be filled. The late afternoon sun warms our shoulders. In the garden, the children chase one another, shrieking and laughing, their joy catching in the breeze like wildflowers scattering. Inside, on the easel by the window, my newest painting waits, unfinished but full of promise. Tomorrow, I'll return to it. I'll add bold strokes and soften shadows. I'll give it time, care, attention, just as I'm doing with this life I'm building. But today is enough. To sit here, to be seen, to be valued. Not for what I can provide or how well I smooth things over, but simply for being me. The cost of reclaiming that was steep, more than I ever expected. But oh, how worth it it's been.